I'm so excited because Xmas is such a cute rom-com. Was there something about the script itself that really was like, yes, I'm gonna be directing Dan Steele's project?
I particularly enjoyed the premise of two exes in the same house during Christmas. I think it presented a very, some of my favorite filmmakers are particularly these days from 1950s screwball comedy eras, where it's sort of these wacky premises of, you know, um, swapping out an apartment, whether it's a Billy Wilder film or a Howard Hawks movie of sneaking around in sort of an upper societal situation, or a Philadelphia Story where you have multiple exes under the same roof as well. And this kind of had that energy for me, where I was like, okay, two exes, holidays under the same roof, chaos will ensue. And that's what drew it to me. I also really, as a Jewish filmmaker from New York City, I've always wanted to make a Christmas movie, and this was my entry point into being able to start dancing in the genre, with amazing actors like Robbie and Leighton, and with Amazon, who I had been a big fan of, just all the work Amazon was supporting and doing, and to be on Freevee where anyone can watch it for free is exciting, because I'm kind of like a populist filmmaker. I want people to be able to watch what I make without any problems, without any, whether it's a streaming or a theater, like, but just make it accessible. And I think that all these things were very exciting to me.
Well, Leighton and Robbie, I think, are the perfect exes in this. They play off each other so well. How involved were you in the casting of these two as the leads?
They were highly suggested in terms of like people that the studios wanted to work with for this movie. Ultimately, as the director of the movie, there is a say that I have in that process. At this level, you are sometimes handed a project with actors engaged or attached. And I had heard that they wanted to work with those, with Leighton and Robbie. And I was immediately excited by that idea and did anything in my power to make that happen even more, whether that's pitching Leighton the vision for the movie and the tone, or getting on a FaceTime with Robbie and sort of walking through how we ground his character. How does it make sense that he wouldn't go back home for the holidays and then he eventually does, and what his relationship is with his family? So ultimately it was a collaboration with the producers in the studio, but we all had to be aligned and excited by these two. When you get a rom-com, you need to have good chemistry with your leads. That's all a rom-com can live by. So I think we got very lucky.
Well, there's so much good humor in this. I really find the funny parts seriously funny, and I think that's a tribute to the actors as well. Speaking of which, was there any room for them to improv at all? Because you got Michael Hitchcock, and you've got Leighton and Robbie, who are no stranger to comedy as well. I mean, I've got to ask.
Totally. The improv was, as much as it is, Dan wrote a really tight script. And so it was oftentimes, in what you see in the movie is quite close to the script. However, when you have someone like Michael Hitchcock and Catherine Greenwood, who, comes from the Second City and comes from Whose Line Is It Anyway? And Michael coming from Best in Show and the films of Christopher Guest and Waiting for Guffman, of course I'm going to let them pull off the ripcord. But usually what happens is something that's sort of just a new interpretation of the text and the lines themselves, and or just the way it's said, or a physical motion that comes from that. So there is certainly a blooper reel that exists somewhere of Michael being genius for an hour, and there's plot lines that were cut that I think Michael created, and I would try to keep up in terms of creating a prop, so he made up this whole thing about something called a Bix bar, which is a fictional candy. And it didn't make it into the final movie, but I have a Bix bar in my fridge because I had production make a Bix bar so I could put it in the story. But that's just, that's the beauty of working with wonderful improv actors, is it's so much new stuff can get discovered. And then the reality of filmmaking is usually you stick to the script and the edit, but it's all a blast.
Well, certainly every scene is super funny and some of them are heartfelt. Was there a particular scene that you saw come to life on screen that you have a affinity for?
I love the scene where Robbie comes back upstairs, tired from work, and he falls into his bed, and Leighton's in there, and he forgets. And there's, you see them making out, and it's this blue light blasted, blasted in the room through the moon and with the moonlight. And then the next morning, they're cuddling and, Leighton's snoring in his face. I love that whole sequence. I think it is the essence of what I want the movie to be. It is the essence of who I am as a filmmaker, with the tango music in the background. That's a sequence that I really, really loved and had a blast directing.
Certainly, the house is a character almost in itself. Talk about finding it for this film.
So I had a wonderful location manager, Jacob, who took me around Kelowna, Canada. I was new to the city, and we looked at, of course, 20 houses, all of different sizes, all of different, um, you know, socioeconomical class, which was a big part of this for me. I wanted this family to feel like a typical family. I didn't want them to feel too wealthy. I didn't want them to, I wanted to feel still, as if they had a dual income from both parents. I wanted to feel relatable. Now, the house we actually shot in is by no means relatable if you look at it from the outside. It's a massive house, but it still feels somewhat humble. It still feels somewhat homemade. And the aesthetic that the house had to offer, even off our location scout, made a lot of sense. This is there's a budget to this movie that, and you want to find a place that is also comfortable to film. And so this big house allowed us to have, just live there for 10, not, we didn't live there, but like live our gear there for 10 days. And my wonderful production designer, Bobby Allen, she was able to take my direction, which was Christmas threw up everywhere, and inject that into the home. And that links with the character Jeannie, who just loves decorating the house. And perhaps even in the summer, there's still some Christmas decorations that are hanging up. So we scouted a bunch. When we found it, we knew right away, and we were able to luckily lock it down for a while.
What do you think it is about Xmas that's just going to make it a time-honored traditional watch?
I think Leighton and Robbie bring a lot. I think the family brings a lot. Like the best thing about the movie is simply the chemistry with the family and the realness that they offer. And if you're willing to buy the first half of the film and its goofiness and you stick around for the rest of it, you then get the added layers of depth that I think the family really brings. I think the premise is kind of, ridiculous and relatable. We've either been the person that keeps in touch with our ex's family, or we have thought about keeping in touch with our ex's family. So I hope that that's another, reason that people will come around and watch the film again.
I have to ask, what are some of your then favorite holiday films to watch?
I love The Holiday. I love the movie Hook. I love, I love Elf. And I also love Christmas in Connecticut and It's a Wonderful Life. And White Christmas is a new one I've gotten really nostalgic for, strangely, even though I've never seen it until recently. And to me, Christmas movies are magical and, optimistic. And, by the way, the Muppets Christmas is a great one as well. So I was just excited to enter something into the canon. I don't think this will be the last Christmas film I ever make, because I really do love the genre. I would love to make a Christmas movie in New York, because who doesn't want a Christmas movie in New York? And I'd say those are my favorites.